Number 1. A strange man tried to hug me on the sidewalk. Before the story begins, I would like to clarify that I'm writing these lines during the third week of April in the year 2024. This encounter happened to me a few months ago. For context, I am a male and I'm 18 years old, and I live about 1.5 kilometers away from a shopping center, or just under a mile. The route I take usually requires me to turn 2 corners and walk straight for the rest of the journey. Although pretty early on the walk, there is a tall apartment block to the left of the pathway along the main road. I would say it has about 4 or 5 levels. I live in a shady area, and previously the apartment block had a case of a stabbing that killed a woman a year before my story takes place. I witnessed the cleanup crews hosing the area down when that happened. This caused me to be pretty wary of the area in general. On this day, in particular, I needed to go to the shopping center to pick up a couple supplies. I noticed as I started walking the pathway of the straight road that the sky was pretty dark. It was early in the afternoon, so this meant a storm was on the way. Not a drop of rain fell as I made my way to the shop. Once I had arrived, I picked up what I needed and I went window shopping for a while. When I was satisfied, I exited through the door I had originally entered and began walking back home. I made it to the final set of traffic lights that was probably a 7-minute walk from my house. The rain started to tickle at first, and then after that, it poured pretty heavily. 3 minutes later, I could see the apartment block about 20 meters ahead to the right. The rain was still pouring down, and so the visibility wasn't that great. But what I could make out was a man in a dark green poncho. He had the hood of the poncho over his head and a big grin on his face for some reason. As I got closer and closer to him, I didn't like the feeling I was getting. He reached his arms out, almost as if he was attempting to bring me into his embrace, keeping that same smile he had before. The man was 5 meters distance from me when I took the opportunity to cross onto the median strip of the main road. I noticed his glance follow me as I crossed into the middle grassy patch. Even though there was no traffic, he decided not to chase me down and continued walking along the pathway as he kept eye contact with me. The thought of what might have happened if I walked into his arms still frightens me today. Even if he didn't mean any harm and was not trying to grab me, I still don't like the vibe I got from him. And when I reached the middle of the road, I felt safer and relieved, especially considering he didn't attempt to follow behind me. TLDR, on my walk back home from a shopping trip, a man in a green poncho stared me down with a smile on his face and his arms out. I had a feeling he was going to hurt me, so I crossed the road to avoid him. He continued to stare into my eyes as I tried to get away from him.
That's terrifying. Do you keep any safety precautions on you, Aka? Pocket knife, pepper spray, taser? If not, please start doing so.
Unfortunately, in Australia, self-defense tools are unlawful. For things like this, I think it's a good idea that people learn how to give a low blow directly between the legs of men being inappropriate. I hope you're okay. And the worst thing is that it is really sad that some women could use such knowledge. Story number 2. Trafficking attempt in Tokyo. Good morning, everyone. I have posted on this sub once before about an event that happened when I was a small child, but it's been a while. Hopefully I do this the correct format. This happened a month ago in Shinjuku, Tokyo, Japan. I'm writing these lines in the year 2023 in the month of June. I am a 28-year-old white American woman from Alaska. I'm slightly above average height for a woman my age, and I am by no means tiny, though I'm not particularly fat or buff either. My point of mentioning that is that I wouldn't be an easy target to just scoop up and kidnap. I also have a lot of distinctive identifying features. My waist length hair is currently half blonde, half dark brown, and I have visible tattoos all over my upper body, including on both arms. Last month, I was in Japan for 2.5 weeks with my fiance and some family, and several of our mutual friends. The whole group was about 12 people. I speak Japanese fluently, and I am a well-traveled person and consider myself to be pretty street smart and able to take care of myself. So while I did not wander off alone much on this trip, I wasn't concerned if it did have to go somewhere by myself. It was Friday night during Golden Week in Tokyo, the day before we were leaving to come back to the States, and our group was going to go out drinking on our last night. The area we were staying in wasn't the nicest, but it wasn't particularly bad either. Just more dirty than other areas in Tokyo, and with a lot more tourists, and more homeless people, etc. Each night, when we would go out, the men in our group would be openly propositioned by prostitutes, and there were often people just passed out on the streets. Things like that. So on the last night, we were all going to meet up in front of our hotel to go out. A large, nice hotel in the main city center. And I happened to be the first person there. Now, while I wasn't with my group and the people I know, I was by no means alone. There were hundreds of people around, as this was a very populated area, and I was standing on the sidewalk in front of the hotel. A man suddenly approached me, and the first thing that put my guard up was how close he got to me. Again, this was a crowded area, but by no means crowded or noisy enough that he needed to be 5 inches away from me, which he was. He was black and looked to be around my age, probably between 25 and 35. He immediately started asking me questions, and I got more suspicious on the edge with each one. This is how the conversation went.
Hello, where are you from?
I am from Alaska.
Oh, American?
Yes. Where are you from?
Ghana, are you here alone?
Me? No. I am with about 15 people, including my husband and my dad. They are in that shop right there. In reality, I was with 12 people.
What hotel are you staying at?
I don't know the name of it. It's across the city. Also a lie. As we were standing in front of the hotel I was staying at.
How old are you?
35. I'm 35. Also a lie. I was trying to say I was as old as possible while having it still be believable.
Right, come with me.
Yes, no thanks. At this point, I began to turn to walk away.
Yes, come with me. We'll take something.
Nope, bye. I then began hurriedly walking towards one of the nearby shops.
Take something. Wake up in paradise.
Luckily, he did not follow me, and I waited for my group inside the store that I went into to get away from him. I immediately messaged our group, and my fiance and another of the men came down immediately. This incident was particularly scary because of a couple of the people on the trip with us didn't have this radar for this kind of thing, and it makes me feel ill to think what might have happened if they had been the one being propositioned instead of me. Also, I know I should have stopped talking to the guy sooner. I was just kind of frozen, and at the beginning I thought he might just be a regular guy trying to hit on me, which I planned to kindly turn him down. Asking where I'm from didn't strike me as too weird on its own, but his next lines of questioning were enormous red flags. Notice that in that whole conversation, he never once asked my name, or if I was married with someone, which you would expect someone might do if they are just trying to hit on you. Also, keep in mind that this happened in one of the safest countries in the world. Moral of the story is that you can never be too careful, especially as a woman. Keep your wits about you and don't feel bad for blowing off strangers. Also, if something seems off, don't give out your real information. I shouldn't even have told him the actual state I live in, but luckily I realized that he was sketchy after that and didn't even give him any more real info.
Definitely creepy, but I doubt he was trying to traffic you. Trafficking victims tend to be homeless, runaways, refugees, financially desperate people looking for work, etc. People without social networks who won't be missed. Not tourists from rich countries traveling with their families. He was probably just a random creep trying to pick you up.
Definitely possible, but also the questions he was asking were what gave me trafficking vibes. I'm glad I'll never know his true intentions.
There's been a creepy guy going around Tokyo, verbally attacking people and live streaming it. Some people have started to fight back. I don't know what's wrong with people. I'll provide a link for reference in case you feel like checking it.